sorry, Mr. Officer, I know you building coffins for all the kids who look like me. The lightest to the darker ones. Hate the way our music sound and pants hanging off of us. Angry cause we make a way despite the name you calling us.
Last night I couldn't sleep, just wrestling with my thoughts. And to Ahmad's family, condolences for your losses. Silly of me to campaign running for office when his brothers in the streets getting slain like running targets is preposterous. They say it's liberty and justice. Unless you black and you running, then you get absolutely nothing unless you run for their touchdown or catch they alley-oops to execute they run and shoot. Otherwise, they shoot at you. And we all know what happens if they do investigate it. They'll just say they saw a black man and felt intimidated by the beauty in that skin that makes them all hate it, even though it's that black skin that built this whole nation. Tell us be patient. Others gonna say, go get your arms up. But if we learn from Tulsa, we do that and they'll just bomb us. I fell back from rapping. They say I had got too conscious. Rapping about commas, they just kill us and make us watch it. I think of Ahmad. I see my son, he just started walking. What am I supposed to tell him when he's old enough for jogging? Don't run too fast or too slow. Watch your back, watch where you go. Don't leave too early or too late. Call the cops, I don't know. Should I lie to him and tell him that freedom will come? Knowing the only free people here are white men with guns. I am Joshua Gunn. I'm an artist, community leader, festival co-founder. I am a father, a partner in a co-working space called Provident 1898. I'm a Durhamite, and I'm a black man that cares a lot about black people. For me, a lot of my art is therapy for my own personal needs, and it can be traumatic for me. It can be really difficult personally for me to see something so traumatic like a person being killed on a video. And so music has always been my outlet to sort of get those thoughts out. And in particular, the Ahmaud Arbery piece was just that. I don't want to take someone else's tragedy and get some fame from it or get likes from it, or I'm really careful about that. And I didn't want to do a piece about Ahmaud, but mainly because there was this little bit of a feeling of hopelessness. And I was like, if I do this, I'm not really inspiring anyone with what I want to say, because what I want to say is not particularly inspiring. It's just hopeless, you know? Because it's like another one after the other. But ultimately, you know, I couldn't sleep one night and I was like, I got to get these thoughts out, and just decided to record it. Mainly for me, and I'm happy that it resonated with some people, and people thank me for it, you know, because as an artist, people are looking for the words and they expect you to have them. Activism is such a broad term. I think everyone who has a cause or cares about anything and is willing to fight for that cause is an activist, right? As an artist, as a hip hop artist in particular, I'm inheriting a tradition of activism, right? The first, outside of the party aspect of hip hop culture, hip hop artists have always been activists, right? And a voice for the voiceless. I mean, hip hop is born out of poverty and gang culture, which were also forms of activism in themselves, right? Gang culture was really a method of survival for, you know, kids in New York in the late 70s, and hip hop was born out of that. So I take that responsibility really seriously. That inspires my activism, right? The fact that I've been given a gift to participate in an art form that was born out of such struggle. I think I have a responsibility to speak for people who may not have the platform to speak for themselves, or may not be able to find the words. I've been gifted with the ability to use words, but also I just am a compassionate person. I really care about human lives, specifically black lives, and you know, my world continues to evolve. I'm a dad now, so my activism is inspired by my desire to create a better future for my kids. And it's in different ways, not just as an artist anymore, right? In a business capacity, as a community leader, using my voice in different ways is a big part of what I think activism will look like for me moving forward. Bombs over Paris Street, Watts, California. The problem is the poverty. They want you starving longer. Devalue property, then toss you predatory loans and gentrify up your whole block until you can't afford it. Running water full of chemicals and toxic fumes. They want their guns, but pass laws if you want them too. Huey and Bobby carry arms, call them terrorists. But Constitution quotes when Charlton Heston carried his. I'm sorry, Mr. Officer, I know you building coffins for all the kids who look like me, the lightest to the darker ones. Hate the way my music sound and pants hanging off of us. Angry cause we make a way despite the names you calling us. And Donald Trump's your candidate in states where they let Sandra hang. I'm thinking of Akiel Dinkins gave him 7 as he ran away. Then you clasp your hands and pray, you lying, you a fraud. Cause he made us in his image. Would you point your gun at God? Paris Street is Durham's Black Wall Street, which was destroyed, systemically destroyed, intentionally destroyed through the building of 147 through the black neighborhood of Hayti, but also through the divestment from black businesses in our downtown core. Watts, California is a reference to the Watts riots that happened soon after Dr. King was killed, which there's also evidence of outside agitators really creating that environment, burning down a successful black neighborhood in Watts, California. So again, building on the theme of this sort of government attack or government assault on black people. I say the problem is the poverty. They want you starving longer, right? Poverty is such it's a trap. Right? It really is a trap. And it's very difficult in the capitalist system to pull yourself out of poverty. And the longer that you are in poverty, the longer that you're starving, the easier you are to be manipulated. They devalue property, then toss you predatory loans. I start to talk about gentrification a little bit, right? Predatory lending, mortgaging houses to black people at a disproportionate rate at much higher interest rates, right? 30% interest, inaffordable homes, right? And then divest from your community. There's no business there, so your property value goes down. You sell it because you need the cash, you can't afford to pay it. Someone swoops in and builds $1 million condo. It's sort of this cyclical nature of gentrification, which is depressing the economy in a certain district so that you can buy it for cheap and then make extreme amounts of wealth about it. Running water full of chemicals and toxic fumes. I'm referencing Flint, Michigan, and several other predominantly black cities that are having issues with water quality, lead, which again, I mean, is a government execution of black people, where because of poverty, people are really trapped, right? You know, those who are fortunate enough to get out have gotten out, but there's still, I think, 100,000 people living in the city of Flint. Then I move on to talk about they want their guns, but pass laws if you want them to, right? The only time the NRA has ever advocated for gun control is when the Black Panthers stormed the Capitol in California, right? The only time that we hear on TV about gun control now outside of, you know, mass shootings is when we're talking about black neighborhoods, right? While on the other side of that, the NRA consistently advocates for gun ownership, but it's really from a racist standpoint, right? I say when Huey and Bobby carry arms, they call them terrorists, right? The Black Panthers should have been the poster childs for the NRA, right? They were advocates of gun ownership and open carry and all the things that the NRA is fighting for, but they called them terrorists and advocated for assault weapons bans in California, which they successfully got, really on the backs of the Black Panther Party. But Constitution quotes when Charlton Heston carried his. When I was a kid, Charlton Heston played Moses in the Ten Commandments, which you've all probably seen, but he was also the spokesperson for the NRA and was a huge Second Amendment advocate, but would never advocate for Second Amendment rights of black people, which we saw with Philando Castile, right? A legal gun-carrying black man that was reaching to show his legal gun ownership papers to a police officer and was murdered. And the NRA said nothing, right? So it's a clear racist platform at the NRA, and I'm sort of calling that out there. Then I go on to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Officer, I know you're building coffins for all the kids who look like me, the lightest to the darker ones, right? Just talking about the systemic targeting of black and brown people by law enforcement. And you know, when we were kids, they would always say you either end up dead or in jail, right? And that's sort of the, you know, if you hear that long enough, right, and you don't have the resources to escape that environment, you really start to think about, okay, they've already got a spot for me in jail, or they've already built a coffin for me, just because of my race or where I was born or how I look. They hate the way our music sounds and pants hanging off of us. I then get to talk about the fact that hip hop is a rebel culture, right? And what people hate the most, I think, people who hate hip hop culture or really hate black culture, is that in spite of all the things that are against us, we still thrive, we still shine, we still party. I mean, you could drive through the most impoverished neighborhood on a nice sunny day. People have seemingly no reason to smile, right? The whole world is against them, but black people still find the means to celebrate and enjoy one another, and that's what hip hop is really born from. Angry because we make a way despite the names you're calling us, right? That's exactly what that line is about. Despite everything, despite being called every horrible name in the book and being systemically disenfranchised from every possible opportunity, we still shine, right? And that's the beauty and resilience of black people. But then I think the most important line of the verse for me is, and then you clasp your hands and pray. You're lying, you're a fraud, because he made us in his image. Would you point your gun at God? And in the Christian theology, it says that God made man in his own image. And there's indisputable archaeological evidence that says the first man was a black man in Africa, right? So if you sort of put those two things together, it would say that God's image is reflective of a black man. If you subscribe to that theology, I'm not saying that I do, but I'm sort of holding that theology up in front of them and saying, if God made the black man in his own image, every time you kill a black man, you're killing the image of God.
Oh, I should have seen this coming. No, I should have seen this coming.